What's up, everybody? Beast and Billions podcast, episode 15. I'm with AJ Fletcher. What's up, man?
Nothing much, dude. Nothing much.
So, did you watch the fights last weekend?
I actually didn't get to see him, dude. Are you talking the pay-per-view this past weekend or the ones a couple days ago?
The one's a couple of days ago.
A couple days ago. No, I saw the highlights and stuff. I saw how a few ended, but didn't get to watch.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway was that the main event, Rakic looked pretty solid, and then busted his knee out. It's always like sad to see when the fighter's doing so good. It's not like he was getting his ass kicked; like he was in that fight. I think he was honestly winning the fight. But it sucks to see when you're winning a fight or it's a super close fight like that to go out, and you get an injury.
Yeah, was it because of leg kicks or anything, or was it just a random
Well, I
thing?
mean, at first glance, he got kicked and then he planted, but it buckled as he was stepping back. So I don't think it was
Uh,
part. I don't think it was a part of the leg kicks, because he just dropped, and then Jan and everyone was like, "What the hell happened?" And then they obviously
Damn.
slowed it down, and you can see like super slow mo. If you play it full speed, you can hardly see it, but super slow mo, you can see his knee buckles, and uh, it always sucks because knee injuries, they're hard to come back from.
Yeah, man, it's as much of the injury itself, it sucks. There's always that. I've never had it happen, thank goodness, knock on wood, but from a bunch of people that I have had or I have seen have those injuries, it's more of like there's almost like a phase where you have to get like your mind has to get over it more so than your body. Like they're
Yes.
scared to kind of put weight, they're scared to plan off of it. It's weird, but in the same breath, I've seen plenty of people, come back from it and even have, better parts of their career. Tony Ferguson, for example, he's had some sort of resurgence after some of his, so
Yeah.
who knows, man.
Yeah, that's still crazy that Tony Ferguson came back in record time from that knee surgery. And Tony Ferguson, obviously, it sucks to see what happened to getting punk kicked to the face and getting knocked out that brutally. It always sucks to see, but on the other side, you're also super happy for Michael Chandler. You're like, that's like it's like the highs are high and the lows are low in the fight game, and it sucks. But I still think it's always sad because when you think about Tony Ferguson, you think about how he got scheduled to fight Khabib like what 4 times, something like that,
Yeah,
and never got the opportunity to. And I'm not going to sit here and say he would have won. I'm not going to say he would have lost. It would have been a great fight, but that's a fight that I feel like should have happened. And if I was Tony, I wouldn't be able to move past it, because that's ultimately who everyone wants to beat if you think about it.
sure. And I don't know, dude. It was like you said, 4 times it was scheduled and something happened. That one's just the fight gods didn't want it to happen, dude. Fight
Right.
gods didn't want it to happen. You just got to let it ride and keep rolling.
Yeah, but I mean, in the lightweight division now, I feel like Charles Oliveira is kind of solidifying himself as really good and solid. Everyone personally, I slept on him. I bet against him. I bet against him against Chandler. I bet against him against Dustin, and I bet against him against Gaethje. I thought all three of those he wasn't going to pull it out, and all three of them he pulled it out. I think when you get hit like that and put down, and the way he recovers, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a testament to who he is as a person. He's a guy who's him and Dustin. I don't know. I feel like they're cut from a similar cloth. They've been around in that division for so damn long, dude. They've seen so many different body types, so many fights, so many people have come and gone while they've all kind of been there. It's I don't know. That's a weird one to have. Have like the be in a division for so long and then have your kind of like ascendant happen on or your ascent happen on the later part of your career, kind of after you've kind of been marinating in that division for so long. But it seems like if you look at him, man, he's put everything together. He's got a chin, he's got the toughness for it. And I know that was a knock on him early in his career because somebody, I think it was Felder, they said he broke in that fight or whatever, but he ain't breaking no more. And then on the feet, dude, I mean, we're seeing not just good boxing, not just good kickboxing, but creative strikes as we saw with Tony. And then on the ground, everybody knows what you're getting with Charles Oliveira, one of the best
Yeah.
in the world there. So
Yeah.
it's impressive to stay in a division that long, and then to also keep learning after you're in a division that long. It's man's a champion.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing though is when he gets dropped, he basically has a automatic 10 count to recover because nobody wants to go play guard with him. And honestly, you'd be kind of silly to go test your luck to go play guard with him, seeing how he has the most submissions, and he'll find a way. I mean, Dustin is a great grappler, and he got backpacked. He's always going to find a way. When you have that lucrative of a submission artist or a jiu-jitsu practitioner, the last place I'd want to be is playing guard with him.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that weighs. I think Dustin's even says something about it. It weighs on in those moments in the fight. It enters into your thoughts, right? Like, damn, dude, this guy's a real good guard player. He's real good on the ground. Should I be here? Should I not? And boom, in that moment, even if he doesn't do any submissions, throw anything up, just by him interrupting your thoughts like that, that's already just like that's part of his game. Like guys know, like, oh shit, I'm here. I got to either work to get up or I got to be on my P's and Q's. Like guys can't just. When you have something in your back pocket like that, guys can't just go through their normal motions, their normal fight plan as they would. It causes like a second of hesitation, a second of a little hiccup, if you will, where they kind of like got to reevaluate. And that split second, dude, I mean, they say it all the time in fights. It comes down to a split second or whatever. That's all you need sometimes.
Yeah, and especially when you're at the level of like Dustin and Charles, you can't think. You have to erase the thinking out of it, because when you think, that's when you get caught, because then if you think, you start second guessing yourself, and there's just so many things that happen when you think. It has to be like kind of like instinct and routine, and when you're playing guard or grappling with somebody like that who is elite, probably one of the best, was one of the best, you cannot think, because that's just going to give them a window of opportunity. And when you're Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira in a fight, then it's a game of millimeters. It's not even inches. One thing, and that fight changes. I mean, just the way it ending in a rear naked choke, that's one little thing that went wrong, one little mishap by Dustin, and it ended in that way. And when you're that elite, you got to be perfect in every aspect if you want to win.
Yeah, man. Every little second, something can go one way or it can go the other. If you stop that fight at the end of the first round and you just say, okay, who's the winner here? You're like, oh, Dustin's about to fucking just trash this dude. And he dropped him once, I think, rocked him twice or something like that.
Yeah.
It's it's a crazy sport we're in. Crazy game we play.
It is, because and that's the reason why I love MMA so much, because I grew up playing football, and as a quarterback, I know if I'm down 21, I have this amount of time to fix it, right? But if I'm in a fight, I may have 3 rounds, but I can just come back in the second round and get it over with, and not even let it get to the judges, or vice versa. I can continue to get trashed, but it can end like that. And that's the best part about it is, it's kind of like playoff hockey in a way, where like next point wins, like it's just, you got to take every round. You can't be like, all right, well, we can take the first quarter off and the first half off and then just come out strong in the second half. It's just not how it works. You're going to get beat up.
Yeah, man, every second matters in there. And it's one where every decision matters too. It's like, okay, do I take this 15-second rest again, like on top or on the bottom, or do I, try to expend my energy and maybe be tired for the third round because I know I need this second round, or I know I need to try to finish it early or whatever. There's every decision has a certain weight to it that you just don't see in most sports. And whenever it's not just that, when it's the fact that the game could end like that. It's every decision, every second matters, and then it could also just like that, it's over. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Gotta love it.
And going back to like thinking, I talked to a few amateur fighters, and they said the biggest hump is the fact that accepting, like you start thinking like, okay, it can end. Am I going to be the one put out? And you start thinking about it in the cage. You're like, Am I going to get caught with a shot? And then, you know, these thoughts continue, and then you're down 2 rounds and you're in the 3rd round. And it's not because that you're getting beat up by a dude who's just flat out better than you. You just been in your own mind. And when, like I said, when you think you can't, it's just a bad recipe, because in a cage, it's primal, and you got to act on instinct.
Yeah, man, I would classify. I'm sure everybody kind of experiences it's somewhat different, but I think a lot of the framework is kind of the same. I think there's kind of like 2 things. You have moments in fights where they're like strictly reactionary, right? Maybe a counter punch. I'm not thinking about what I'm throwing. I'm just covering, throwing. Straight reaction. Straight. I couldn't tell you why I do it, what I do. It's just programmed in there from training. It's just going to come out. And then you have those moments where maybe you're against the cage and you're doing some cage grappling. It's a little bit slower pace, or maybe you're on the ground and you're going through positions and shit, or maybe, you know, you just had an exchange on the feet and you're kind of like dancing around, breaking. Those are those moments where you can kind of let your thoughts run away and shit. And if you, it's almost like if you take yourself out of the exact moment you're in, you take yourself out of the intaking information and immediately acting upon that information. If there's like a 3rd layer in there where you intake the information and you kind of think about it a little too much, and then you think about those thoughts a little too much, and it's like a train, bro. It's hard to catch once it gets rolling. So the more you do it, if you have amateurs on and shit, I don't know, maybe that's just something. The more you do it, it doesn't go away. Those things are still there, but you have like a mental check of like, no, train, you ain't rolling yet. Just keep it going, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, fighting is adrenaline that most people will never ever experience. And, you know, it's crazy, because like I talked to a few of my buddies the other day, and we were talking about how what we do is basically as modern day gladiators. We're modern day gladiators, if you think about it. And it's just so crazy to think, you know, because the human body's not made to fight. I mean, it's just really
I would argue some of them are. Some of them are.
Well, as far as like, yeah, it's made to fight, but like the framework of the human, we're not made to go hand-to-hand combat against another human. Is it?
Sure.
You know, we're made
to
be analytical thinkers. You know, we're supposed to hunt our prey and kind of
tools, right?
Yeah. And I learned that in the book, Sapiens, Brief History of Humankind. And, you know, the reason why we've lasted so long on this planet is because our predecessors before us, they weren't smart. They didn't have the capabilities that we have, where we can use our hands and we can hunt, we can think analytically, like, okay, this animal's right here at this time every day. All right, so we're going to come back the next day, instead of trying to hunt it and get desperate, right? And so, and instinctual. And that's where it plays into a fight, where that's where, personally, I could argue that humans are made to fight because you have that instinct, right? But when you look at it to like an atom of what it is, punching somebody else, that's not necessarily what we're put on this planet to do.
Right. But in the same breath too, humans are also some of the most adaptable species on this planet. We can live at, super high altitudes, or you can live down here in Louisiana where it's like 9,000 degrees and humid as shit right now. But like you see that in bone density, right? My knuckles didn't look like this when I first started punching. My shins, they didn't have all these calcification lumps on them and stuff. So there's a bit of you've got to that's what it is, right? It's blending the analytical with the whole instinctual side of it, and blending the human side with also the part that, that thinks on a little bit higher level, and figuring out what that balance is ultimately the place you're trying to get to in a fight. If you're too instinctual, you're too emotional, you're too wrapped up in the feelings of a fight, you're fighting from a place of anger or fear, you're fighting from a place of emotion, that shit never helps you. In the same breath, I think I've heard Corey Sandhagen talk about this. If you're like too analytical, where you almost like cool yourself down too much. He talked about this in his first fight with Aljo, that he just didn't rise up enough. He wasn't on 10 when the fight started because he had cooled himself too much. you have to find that delicate balance of the primal, the instinctual, and blend it with the analytical and the smart hunter, the whatever you want to call that. It's a very fine balance you have to find.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if and I'll kind of revert back. So you said that you start fighting with anger, and my mom, we were watching fights the other day. We threw a little party and we had people over, and my mom, as like a typical girl, was like, I can't imagine like hurting somebody else. I can't imagine punching something like somebody I don't even know. And I countered that with, personally, I would rather fight somebody I've never met before, I've never said a word to, than someone I hate. Because when you fight someone you hate, then, although there's some good to it, right? Like you can go the Khabib Conor route where, he just takes out all of his anger on you. Or you can, fight someone, or you can take the Conor Aldo out where you start twitching and you drop your hands and then you get put to sleep, right? Which is what Conor ultimately wants, not what happened against Khabib, and so that's, personally, I would rather fight someone I've never met before, I've never talked to, because there's no like anger, I'm not upset at this person. Whereas if I'm fighting someone I hate and I know and I have a past with, you start getting you start fighting emotional. You get caught with a few jabs, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna take his head off now, and then you get counter punched. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just I really think I'd rather fight someone who's just I've never met before.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's almost like a case by case kind of thing. I think, like if you look at what was the example? I just lost it. Hmm. I don't know. I was gonna give some example of some fight that I had somewhere in my brain, but it just ran away. But it's like each fight there. Oh, it was Izzy. It was Izzy. He when he fought Paulo Costa, he was talking in his pre-fight interviews about some sort of like he felt the energy for this fight was like darker than some of his ones in the past, and you could see it kind of how he handled himself leading up to the fight. You could see it kind of in how he fought. Like he was more planted, I guess. He was throwing harder shots. He wasn't dancing around as much. Like you see those feelings or you see that energy you carry with you into the fight manifest itself in how you fight in some ways. And there's maybe sometimes too where he's more the Anderson Silva fight, if we're using Izzy as an example, maybe not quite tapped into that like dark energy, that anger, that instinctual side, and more tapped into the analytical striker kind of thing with Anderson. You see what I'm getting at? Like each
Yeah,
fight is like a
yeah,
it's like a continuum. You kind of have to adjust it, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think no matter what, in order to be an elite fighter, you have to have that dark in you. Because again, you're trying to hurt someone else. Like really, if you think about it, you're trying to break a limb or put them unconscious. Like that's really the two things you're going for.
Yeah.
And so, and I want to say normal because we're normal human beings, but like, not so like a not so competitive, I guess, or not so violent, or someone who hasn't been surrounded by it, like this lifestyle, you kind of they will never be able to reason with that. You'll have the people that are like, well, I don't understand like the point of this, and but in the same sentence, they'll watch a fight too, because if you think about it, from year one to now, there's always been murder, and everyone's been there for it. There's never been, there's obviously a focus group of like, nah, that's not for me. But majority are like, I want to watch the gladiators. I want to watch the Vikings go to war. I want to watch, and it just shows now where like UFC, that's, probably one of the most popular sports in the world because first of all, it's not really like a complex thing to grasp. Now, if you look at it for like a level of, all right, you're looking at it more analytically, like, all right, he's looking to pass his guard here, and this is why it's not happening. You look at it like that, then you're getting really deep into it. But to a casual fan, it's really black and white. Two guys are in a cage, and only one guy's gonna leave, ideally, with a knockout or a submission, and that's just kind of what it is. And then obviously you have the human you have the the MMA casual where, you know, they have their
just bleed.
Yeah. And it's like, that's whatever, but, you know, in a way, this is, like I said, this is as primal as it's going to get going forward, especially with the way our society is going towards, you know. And so this is as primal as it's going to get.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I get the view of the casuals. It's tough to, like, they see the gist of the sport. They see, so all the techniques we do, like you said, there has to be some underlying darkness. Like, we're all talking about techniques. We want to refine. We want to, you know, master our craft and all that. But what is mastering our craft? What's the point of it? It's to, like, run your fist through somebody's face and render them incapable of moving. That's the whole point. The fans, the casuals, they get that part. They get that part really well, and you'll hear them talk about it and all that. The part they don't get, and it's not because it's just because of ignorance, right? Whether it's willful ignorance or whether it's just they don't know what they don't know. They can't see and appreciate the, like, oh man, that dude's cross looks just beautiful. There's no fat on it. It's straight away. Or that setup to that head kick was just gorgeous. He made him slip right into it. They can't. It's like if I was to watch basketball, bro. I am 5'9", 5'10" on the little card because I can put whatever I want. But I don't know what the hell I'm looking at in basketball. I've, like, never played. I'm horrendous, and, like, I know ball goes in hoop for my team. Cheer, yay. But I can't appreciate, like, somebody running a pick and roll and doing all this. I don't know how to look for it. I don't know what goes into that. So, like, in the same breath, like, everything we do has to be to an end goal of, like, demolishing somebody, right? And that's what the casuals get. But the more you're into it, the more refined your lens for looking at something is through experience and through your trying your own hand at it or just watching it and listening to, you know, talks about it and shit. The more refined that lens is, the more you can appreciate all the steps and all the setups and everything that get you to that end goal of, you know, running your fist through somebody's face.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, and this is, like, a big thing that I'm so glad that I don't have to deal with, at least yet, is MMA media. Because, like, oh, it's the worst. You know,
why is that?
You have people asking you stupid questions, and, you know, I just don't like, it's not that I don't respect people's hot takes, but it's just like, I don't understand why people need to feel the obligation to push their hot takes. And, you know, and then if you disagree with them and you counteract them with something, then they start like coming after your family, and, you know, it's just like, and they're reckless. And so I'm so glad that I don't necessarily have to deal with that aspect. But I think in order to talk about MMA media or MMA or any sport, like you said, I can't go talk about basketball because I don't know anything about it. I've never played it. But in order to talk about MMA at a professional level, you have to have a guy on my podcast a couple of episodes ago, Blake Builder. He was like, in order to talk about or judge or ref or do anything, you have to have a smoker fight. Just your family's there, their family's there. You get some cameras going, and then you'll quickly see how the just get up or, you know, that kind of stuff quickly fades when somebody who's elite is, you know, just think about it, like a Khabib who's practiced that his whole life is, you know, grappling you and holding you down. You can't just get up. Like, it's just not as simple as that. And you know, you'll quickly see how quickly that fades and how quickly the narrative shifts from, you know, the questions to the scoring to, you know, whatever it is, what it's going to benefit. It would benefit completely.
Oh, 100%, dude. The judging one is the one that really gets me. Like, knowing that there's boxing refs that are sometimes judging, like, MMA fights. I'm like, what? That just doesn't. We're in 2022, bro. It just don't make sense. But
yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's I think it's a mindset too thing. I don't know if you remember when Stephen A. first came into the MMA scene. I think it was around the time Conor fought Cowboy.
Oh yeah.
And he, like, completely, he didn't understand the whole, it wasn't just that he saw the fight and he reacted to the, you know, to the gist of what he saw. Cowboy got knocked out quick, whatever. But there was just this underlying, like, he doesn't know anything about the mindset going into a fight. He was like, Cowboy looked defeated, blah, blah, blah. Cowboy should just retire. It's like, hold on. Cowboy's been in this thing for like, I don't know, 12 or 15 years. He's got, I don't know how many UFC records. You can't just come in your first time commentating or even commenting on some of this stuff and start just berating this dude who's an absolute legend and like just insinuating his mindset going in there when you have no idea what it even takes to get punched in the face or to make that walk to the cage or whatever. It comes from a very, like, it's one thing to do it in other sports. Like, I can talk shit on Nate Robinson. He missed I don't even know if he's still a name. He missed a 3-pointer. Oh, he sucks, bro, whatever. But it's another thing when you, like, it just seems more personal with fighting because if I lose a game in basketball, baseball, whatever, damn, it sucks. Next season, whatever. I have a bad night at the office and fighting, bro. My nose looks like this. My ears are looking like this. Like, it's not a one night thing. It's like I'm dealing, God forbid, with the consequences of that bad night for the rest of my life. So to come in here with no experience and no skin in the game to start just chucking stones, it's like you're in the wrong sport to do that, buddy. Because most of the MMA fans that have been around for a little bit and most of the MMA media that aren't just looking for the clicks, they're going to call you out on your bullshit, and they're going to have, for the most part, see what the fighter's about and have their back.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I've honestly never been able to I guess I respect Stephen A because I don't know him as a person or anything, but I've never been able to move past that comment. Like, like it's really crazy because if you think about Cowboy and the wars he's been in, it's not like he just gave up. Like, and not to mention, eat some shoulders from Conor McGregor. Do whatever shot, that head kick that put him down. Eat that, and then come talk about giving up, Steven. And secondly, there was a video that surfaced of him hitting mitts after, and it's like if you're hitting mitts like that, you can't talk at all.
Bro, he looked like he was tossing a pizza or something like
that. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man.
You can't. I just feel like you can't. I don't know. And then, like you said, judging. Like, there's been some awful judging that I've been like, how did that even, how? I don't know. I think the Petr Yan Aljamain Sterling fight was not the best judging. I personally had Yan winning 1-4-5. And then the other one, Volkanovski, Max Holloway, both times. I love Volkanovski. I think he's come on as a great champion, but against Max Holloway, that's why I'm glad they're doing it a third time. But that's just not the best. No,
there's some weird ones, dude. When they first went to Texas too, it might have been before the pandemic, but I remember Texas had some like really weird decisions that kind of went the way of a lot of the hometown fellas or ladies or whatever those couple nights. And I don't think it's like that anymore. I think they, like, after that night they kind of sorted it out or whatever, but it's weird, like, being at the highest level of the sport and having people that have, because we're at a point now, like in early MMA, I get it. We're using boxing refs. The infrastructure wasn't there for MMA. There wasn't as many like veterans of the sport that, could use a job in the field, staying in the sport. Now we're to a point where we have analysts, we have people that have retired, we have plenty of fighters that are around that would be happy to fucking judge fights or be happy to be on a commission and do this shit. But we're still in a point where I know it depends state by state, but where some people that are judging just have no clue. And it's one thing if it's a win and a loss. It's another thing when half your pay is dictated on the decision of one man or one woman who doesn't know what they're judging, who doesn't know what they're looking at. There's a lot of we're in a weird transitionary period, I feel like, for MMA. And I hope that some of these things kind of get sorted out, but there's definitely still some that need some ironing, that's for sure.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And it goes back to MMA is different than every sport, is that one loss on your record determines a lot of stuff. Like, if if I'm playing football and I lose one week, I'm like, all right, we'll get them next week, right? But that one loss on your record, and football refreshes every year, every season it refreshes. You're not looking at, you don't have a running record like you do in MMA, and so that one loss, it's just awful to see when you did your job, and you've won 3 out of 5 rounds or 2 out of 3 rounds, and you had a closer round, but you did your job, and majority of people think that they won or you've won. It's kind of like it's just so different, and and that's why I think a smoker fight, if you want to ref, if you want to judge, if you want to talk about MMA professionally, I think it'd be good for everyone to have a smoker fight. And not only that, I like what you said. There's retired fighters that would love to do it. Like you're telling me, you can't get five or three retired fighters that were solid. Like you couldn't find 3 that were solid and were like at the top of their game. It's just
No, it's weird, man. I don't know. I feel like it's changing, slowly but surely. But yeah, definitely some parts of it that need to be. And in the same breath too, there's also some decisions where even me as an experienced fighter and stuff, I'll judge it or I'll be looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I've got no clue. Whoever wins that, go for it. Great. Give them both their money. They both fought like hell. I have no idea who wins that.
Yes.
But like, what was a good example? I can't remember. There's a shit ton. There's some every week.
Well, I mean, you could have when I think of that, I think of Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, it was a clear round 1 winner, a clear round 2 winner, and then round 3. What's more important, the back half or the front half of the 3rd round? What's more important to you? It's just one of those things where it's also I would hate to be a judge because it's you're not judging for, all right, this guy will just get him next week. Like no, it carries a lot, and like you said, it's definitely a hard thing because there's some fights where you don't even know. It's just like, all right, I'll take this one off. Even some rounds where you like personally, I look at like Twitter when they pop up Twitter, and I'm like, and I see like people posting their scores. I'm like, all right, I can see that. All right, that's what we're rolling with. We're rolling with 10-9, whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Even if you do have educated judges too, there's still bias in there too. Okay, maybe you have a judge who's like more boxing heavy. He scores that higher than grappling. Okay, well, that changes fight to fight. And then the thing you mentioned, do you score the first half or the last half more? I would be willing to say in 80% of the fights, the last minute and a half is scored with something like the weight of 1.5 to 2 times what the first 3.5 minutes are. And it's not that they're like trying to do that. It's just, I remember the last thing that happened in my mind. I see somebody get dropped, somebody get taken down, thrown a few elbows the last minute of the round. Damn, all of a sudden those first 4 minutes, they don't seem as, whatever happened, if they were close or whatever, they don't seem as much, they don't seem like they have as much weight, that recency bias is definitely a big thing in judging and just human nature in general.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a hard thing to do because, and also when you think of it, like it's biased because just because you're in guard does not mean you're losing a fight. And how do you score that? Because you could be dropping elbows on somebody, and then you also have someone like Tony Ferguson who's explosive from the bottom and throws shots from the bottom. He's not losing the fight. So how do you score that? And then also, there's people that threaten submissions from their back 100% of the time. You make one mishap and you're going to end up in, a triangle, or if they can pull a rubber guard, whatever it is, you're going to end up in a sticky situation real quick if you make one mistake. And so how do you score that too? Because just because you're on your back does not necessarily mean you're losing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then, so just like sometimes we have people get rocked and it doesn't lead to a full-blown knockout. There's plenty of people that get to step 3, step 4, step 5 of submission, and then somebody just squeaks out. Volkanovski and Ortega, for example. Yes. That dude has some of the deepest guillotines I've ever seen in my life, but Volkanovski pops out and ultimately comes back. And I think he won those rounds on most of the scorecards.
Yes.
But do you score the near submission victory? Does that score at all in how you weight the round, or is it the end of the round with Volkanovski just throwing big punches causing damage? It's a weird thing, and I don't know. That's kind of what makes it interesting too. At the same breath, in the same breath of it all being terrible and stuff, you're always kind of like, "Oh, what are the Jets going to do this time?"
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a crazy thing, and it just further separates MMA from every other sport. And another thing that does that is the fact that you don't have to speak English to fight. In order to play football, or you basically have to be in America. Like, you're not to go play at a big D1 university. That's the only shot you have at going to the NFL. If you go to and then some Canada, but typically you have to be in the United States. Whereas if you're a fighter, most U.S. fighters are going to Brazil to train jiu-jitsu for at least a month, and then you have like Michael Bisping went to Thailand to train for his kicks, Muay Thai, Russia. There's so many. You see so much diversity in champions. Like, you have Jamaican, you have Mexican, you have American, you have Russian,
Nigerian, everything, bro.
Everything, and that's another thing that separates fighting from everything else. And you don't have to communicate necessarily either. Like, you don't have to communicate in the cage. I know, most times you do. You say stuff to like break the awkwardness, but you're just laying on a guy. You're not just gonna sit there and be quiet, raining elbows on him. You
gotta let him know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's very intriguing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. Yeah, it's human, like the last way of communication we've gotten, and I see that the time's starting to come up, so just cut me off whenever you want, and we can pick it back up. But humans, the last form of communication we've got is, well, now it's texting and through technology and shit. But before that, it was language. Before language, we communicated with hormones and pheromones and scents and body language and facial expressions and all that. All that transfers no matter what language or what part of the world you're from. And in the same way that like fighting and knowing how to move your body in that fight language, you can communicate a lot of things about who you are as a person that you can't hide through language to somebody that has no idea what the fuck you're saying. I can go on the mats with somebody from Brazil and he knows exactly what I'm about within the first 5 seconds, 10 seconds we roll.
Yeah, dude, what I was saying was fighting, it's like something that you can communicate. It's worldwide. It's universal. Like you said, football's America, soccer's got its own little niche, rugby's got its own little place. Fighting is everywhere. And ultimately that's because everywhere in the world has had some sort of fight that's ingrained like in their human nature. Some sort of fight for independence, some sort of fight for survival, some sort of fight for prosperity. Whatever it is, we all have some sort of fight that our people, our ancestors have had to do. And that's still very much in us. So we recognize when somebody's got that thing in them, and we recognize the body language and all that before we recognize text communication or even just language in general. And that's one of the coolest things that I had no idea when I got into fighting I would receive, or I would think is cool. But the fact that I can go to an American top team or go all the way up to Wisconsin or go to Brazil or go to Thailand and have some way of communication, some way of sharing what I'm about and some way of receiving what they're about, and like experiencing those different parts of the world and different people and different mindsets, different ideas. That's like one of the coolest things about fighting. It's like a vehicle of just, I don't know. It's like just so raw. It's so pure. There's no wrapper of language, no wrapper of culture, no wrapper. It's just worldwide. It's raw, and you can't hide shit. When that cage door closes or when you step on the mats, like whatever you're about, whatever work you put in, whatever truth you have, it's gonna show, buddy. And you better not lie about it, because there's no point in doing it. It's gonna show.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. And you also learn about yourself through fighting, because like I said, I've grown up playing football, and I learned so much about myself even through sparring, where it's like, you just realize, okay, there's either an inner dog in me, where it's like, I love this, which fortunately for me, that's what happened. But there's also, there's people that will run from it and be like, okay, this isn't for me. Getting punched in the face is not necessarily for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, dude, and I've seen it. It has a way of giving people what they need too. And what I mean is like I came in after high school football, right? Young 18-year-old kid. I lifted weights and played sports all my life. I come in with like this vigor, right? This energy, and you start getting tapped out. You get humbled real quick by this like
Yeah.
130-pound, 40-year-old man who's a purple belt or whatever, and he's twisting you up like a little pretzel. It humbles those who are like all piss and vinegar when they come in. And in the same breath, I saw this side more so when I was teaching, but you'll see people that are, less confident, that are more shy types, that have maybe been bullied. That's the other kind of people it attracts. And it has a way of like raising those people up and showing them like there's nothing like getting punched in the face is a very weird thing, but whenever you get punched in the face and you realize that like you'll be all right, like you're not broken, it's a very empowering thing. Like whenever you
Yes.
realize you're not fragile, it's a very good feeling. And then when you start, you keep showing up, so you realize you're not fragile, you keep getting your ass whooped, and then something happens where you start seeing that the time and the work you've put in, you start seeing that like manifest itself in how your rolls go or how your spars go. Maybe you last like a minute instead of 30 seconds versus this brown belt.
Hmm.
Maybe you start like landing some of your own stuff. You start seeing a direct correlation to the work you put in and to the mindset you bring into it and how that translates into the world. And I don't know, it's got a way of, yeah, it just gives, I don't know, it gives everybody what they need. It'll either mellow you down and kind of bring you back down, or it'll raise you up and kind of show you that, hey, you're all right, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. And there's I've been on both ends of it. I remember I went and rolled and I got dominated. And I'm not the tallest guy. I'm 5'9" and 180 pounds, getting ready to play college football. So um
Man.
yeah. And so I'm not weak by any means, but there was like this 5'7" 28-year-old who's never played a sport in his life, really geeky. And those are always the ones who will really ruin your fucking day. Is the ones who wear
Hmm.
glasses, like John Donaher, just just looks like a complete nerd. And you're like, if you see him, you're like, all right, I'll fuck this dude up. No, you got it messed up. Right? He would ruin your day. And
Oh yeah.
so it's always those guys I find. But so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna pick this guy up and just slam him on his head. Like, there's really no competition here. And so I tried to, and then he pulled a guillotine on me, or he rolled into an arm bar. I mean, I was like, how does this even happen? Like, my arm was just here, and now it's extended and about to get broken. Um, and so I got very humbled, but in the same sense, in boxing, I you also feel like when you knock somebody out or you hit someone really hard and you can see you hurt them, you just get like, oh, it's just like a feeling that you're like, I can really do this. Like, my fist can really knock somebody unconscious, which is
Mhm.
and crazy to think about.
Yeah, no, it teaches, that's the thing. Like it teaches you both sides. It teaches you how to get your ass whooped, and it teaches you how to give an ass whooping. It teaches you, like, it shows you your power, and then it shows you the damage your power can do. Like I've
Yes.
told this story, and I hope he won't mind. I won't say his name or nothing, but we have a guy at the gym. He's an amateur fighter. He's starting to, starting to try to, he's sparring more and more. He's doing the smokers, he's doing the jiu-jitsu tournaments. He's on the path, right? When he first came in, he was probably here for a year to a year and a half. Dude, he was like he would spar, but you could tell like he was like scared to get hit. Like one hit and you kind of like turn away, and whenever I would press him, he kind of turn his back and kind of run a little bit. Finally, one day, dude, the more you're in it, the more you learn how to give an ass whooping without giving somebody actual damage. Like you body shots, leg kicks,
Yeah.
takedown shit. You learn how to run somebody through the gauntlet without, you know,
Yeah.
dismembering them. Well, I
Yeah.
kind of did that with this guy, and I gave it was a rough round. Body shots, dropped him a couple of times, takedowns, made him struggle on the ground when we got there and stuff. And at the end of the round, I went up to him and I was like, "Look, dude, like I can see your skills progressing, like your kicks, your punches, your timing, everything's getting better, but you have to make a decision in your head. You have to realize like you're not fragile. You can get punched in the face and you'll be just fine. Just like accept that and like recognize that that's a thing and like you're going to do just fine." Dude, it was like a light switch. The next time we sparred, motherfuckers walking me down, just like coming forward. I'm like, "What is this, dude?" And the only reason I knew to do that, I knew to say, I knew how to give him that lesson was because the same shit happened to me. I had something. I was coming from a sport like football where it was cool to kind of like play through injuries and you could kind of like show it and like you could kind of get like a little bit of respect. Like, oh damn, he's limping, his ankles hurt, but he's still out there. Hell yeah.
Yes, for
This
sure.
sport, bro, if you even show it, it's getting attacked. It's getting like if you're grunting when you're like, you're if you let them know that you're struggling, that's like fuel. Whereas in other sports, it's like you get a like commendation for that. But in this sport, like you have to know, like you can't show it. So somebody
Yeah.
did that same lesson for me. They beat me down in a respectful way, and at the end of the round, they said, "Bro, like you're not giving up. You're moving. You're still doing shit, but you're letting me know I'm winning. You're letting me know that I'm the upper side. I'm the upper hand. Stop doing that shit." And it would boom, same shit, like a light switch for me. Then I went on to win, I think 12 fights in a row or whatever, and sometimes that's all you need to hear. You need to know that you're not fragile. And then in the same breath, when you start getting that power, when you start seeing what your skills can do, you remember that. You remember your ass getting whooped. So you know how to give that lesson and not be a complete douche canoe with all this new power that you have.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that you see in boxing specifically. Like if you go to a boxing gym, the top dog who really like, well, I guess boxing's different because you can't throw a leg kick, you can't take somebody down. It's like you're throwing shots to the head or you're throwing shots to the body. There's no in between. And so in boxing, I've never been to a boxing gym specifically, but I've talked to people, and Blake Builder again, but he's a Southern California and he grew up boxing, and luckily he found a guy who's like, only spar with me, because if you spar with anyone else, they'll take your soul. And
Yeah.
so and you see that not as much in MMA, but you'll get sharp if you go to a new room. I talked about this with Gage Young last podcast, where like if you go to a new room, you'll get sharp by the top dogs for like 2 months. You'll get taken down, beat up, not necessarily taking a lot of damage to the head, but giving someone a proper ass whooping, throwing liver shots, body shots, kicking the legs, everything in between. And so you get sharked, and that's another thing where I think you learn a lot about yourself from getting your ass kicked. Like,
Oh,
there's
100%.
not much, and it's not like taking like headshots, like getting all bloodied up, but just getting your ass kicked where you're like, all right, this guy could ruin my fucking day fast. And
Yeah.
and for 2 months, and then after that 2 months of getting sharked, I think you start feeling yourself, like, all right, I can do this. I've gotten my ass whipped for 2 months. Now I, and within those ass whoopings, you're learning. You're like, all right, this is, you know, how I'm doing this is how I'm doing that. And then you grow and grow and grow. And I think it's very important because a lot of people, you can go two ways. You can go the way like you did, and take it and learn, this is what I needed at that time, so this is what I'm gonna give. Or you can just be a proper asshole. And and it's really depends, because in this sport there's a lot of egos too. Like, you're not gonna go into a room and beat up on a top guy. Like, he'll go slow. If you're new, he'll go slow, and then you hit him with one good shot, and then it's like, all right, now I'm gonna hit you with a good shot. And expect, because you find that. Yep.
Yep.
And you
And then
find that with white belts and people new, who they don't know how to spar. They're throwing hard shots to the head, like super, like trying to knock you out shots, and you don't do that necessarily. And if you do on occasion, you're not doing that every sparring session. If you are, then that's a problem. But or like even a white belt gets you in a choke, and doesn't know how to harness themselves, and they either burn themselves out of out of the choke, they're squeezing so hard, or they cause damage, especially with joint locks, not necessarily like chokes, but joint locks, because if you hold that, then damage is done. uh,
Oh yeah.
so I think you it's a weird thing in mixed martial arts. You get your ass whooped for a certain amount, and then you start getting your ass whooped, but also giving some ass whoopings, and then
Mm.
eventually you'll just be at the top.
Yeah, I feel like it's like say this all the time, but fighting mirrors life, right? It's
Hmm.
in life in general, being an asshole holds you back. It's maybe less direct in life than it is in fighting, but it for sure happens. In fighting, being an asshole 100% is a detriment to you, and I'll explain why. If I'm an asshole in the gym, there's a lot of people that I'm the only one, with the exception of Dustin around us and a couple other guys who are veterans and stuff. I'm one of the guys at the highest level around the gym right now. We have a bunch of amateurs, a bunch of pros that are going to be right where I'm at. Just give them a year and a half, something like that. They'll be right there. But in that developmental time while they're coming up, or even when they were earlier on, if I'm an asshole, it's like I'm breaking all my toys. Everybody has something you can learn. I've learned a toe hold, a rolling toe hold from a 60-year-old. I think he's a purple belt now, and he started jujitsu when he was like 58. He showed me this technique, and I'll still pull it out every once in a while. It's not like my go-to, but you can learn something from every person and every body type and every country. They have their own kind of style too. If you close yourself off to that, or if the first time you roll with somebody who's a little bit lower in skill level than you, if you just beat the brakes off of them, well, good luck finding those lessons or even being open to those lessons that they would maybe teach you. You've broken your toys, you have like put it in a corner so that you're never going to lose it and it never wants to get played with again. And you've like shut down that whole avenue of learning. And in the same breath, being an asshole, if I want to go to I went to Houston and trained with Trevin Giles a little bit. I've been different places to train. And if you there's like a certain demeanor you want to walk into those places with. It's not a demeanor of being like passive, like being the doormat and letting everybody walk over you and do their techniques. But in the same breath, it's also not like trying to prove a point and trying to like be the top dog in the new place, because maybe you are the top dog in that new place, but you're not going to get the same squeeze out of that lemon that you would if you were just there to learn, right? If I'm there to learn from the people maybe in this new place who are a little bit below me and I see their style, great. If I'm like going back and forth with Trevin or something like that, Trevin Giles, and we're having a good spar because that's like how we're going to learn from each other, that's how we're going to get the most out of the spar, most out of the session, then that's something there too. But if I go to a new place with this asshole mindset that I'm going to prove I'm the top dog, I'm going to impose my style on all these people, I'm not going to learn the lessons. And odds are I'm going to have a shorter career and I'm not going to see the world like I normally would, because all these places are just going to shut themselves off to me because I'm an asshole trying to beat them down. I don't think there's any winning in being an asshole in this sport.
Well,
Now,
yeah,
maybe
and
Colby.
yeah, and I mean Connor to an extent, but I don't necessarily think those guys are assholes to like as a person. Like I think
Right.
like if and I say this because I can't stand Aljamain Sterling, and I try to, but I just can't stand the way he talks. But I'm not ignorant. I know if I saw Aljamain Sterling at the supermarket, I'll be like, Aljo, what's up, man? And that's not because I'm fake or anything. It's just because I don't like the heel Aljamain Sterling. I want to meet the real. Like I want to shake your hand and be like, "What's up, man?" You know, like because you really don't know who someone is until shake their hand, look in their eye, talk to them. That's when you can gauge if you like someone or not, and that's kind of like a thing that I do. But at Connor and Colby, I like them both, but I don't necessarily like some of the stuff they say. Um, but I think it's if you were to meet them in person, I think that like they're not douchebags, right? They're not just like
Right.
stuck up assholes. Like I think they're both like solid dudes, but I think they're concerned about selling tickets more so than portraying that they're not really an asshole.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, dude, I used to look up to Connor a bunch. When I was first getting into the game, I watched all his interviews, all the little things that came out. There was
Yeah.
something that switched in him, and I guess it was around the Khabib fight. If you look at a lot of his old interviews, he was like he was funny whenever he would like dish out the insults and shit. Like it was in good humor. It wasn't like attacking people and their family and their wives. And a lot of the shit he said, it wasn't about them. It wasn't about people other than himself. He was talking about him and his skills. And he was saying that whoever he fights is just a body and it's more him and his skills and how he adjusts and shit. I think when you start creating a character or whenever you create a brand that's especially not you, you kind of some of that seeps into who you are. It can there, right at some point, depending on how long you do it or whatever. And I feel like I don't know. That's a dangerous game. That I get it. You know, you want to sell tickets, but in my opinion, there's other ways to do it, and there's other ways to do it that you're not in a way where you're not sacrificing, your actual self, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, there's a few things too to talk about where like when you're like Connor, like it doesn't get much better than who the fuck is that guy, right? It
Exactly.
doesn't get much better than that. But when you start thinking as Connor, if you're playing Connor, you're like, all right, this is my best. I got to top it. Because let's be
True.
real, that was a long time ago. That was almost a decade ago. So
Golly.
so you can't like hang on to that. Are you going to be the guy who's like, yeah, I played varsity high school baseball, or are you going to be that guy? So you kind
Right.
of gotta figure out ways to keep
One up yourself.
raising the game. Yeah, but in that same sentence, I don't think you need to talk about people's wives, religion, or kids. I feel like those three things. Like I personally love a good shit talk. Like if I'm playing video games
Yeah.
with my buddies, I'm gonna talk shit to them.
Got
You know,
to.
or just sparring in the gym. I'm gonna talk shit to them. Is that all you got?
Yeah.
But I'll never be like, I'll never take it to the extent of talking about somebody's wife, kids, or religion.
Right. Dude, I think yeah, you can feel when that line is like starting to
Yeah.
comedians do it, but they're like professionals at it, right? They know
Yes.
that line real good. They're real familiar with it. When fighters and guys who are more maybe not adept at using their words in their line of work, I mean, more so we're getting into that now, but they don't know where that line is sometimes when you start creating a character and like you said, you're trying to one up yourself. You get lost a little bit. And that's I don't know, that's the danger to me in creating
Yeah.
a character and trying to hold fast to that whole persona you make.
Yeah, I think though one of the big things though is looking at like Chael Sonnen, right? He never attacked anybody, but it was just funny. It was just
Yeah.
funny. Like he's hilarious. Like the only thing that I feel like I can the only thing I remember him attacking was Tito Ortiz when Tito was like his mouth gets him every opportunity. And then Chael was like what do you say? Oh, he was like the only person I know that made money using their mouth was his ex-wife. And and see that's like the comedian line, right? Like it's not he towed it perfectly. You're not insulting, but you're using a fact and bringing it to a comedy fashion. And I think that is like is as far as like that's perfect as far as comical.
Oh yeah, Chael was great at it, dude. Muhammad Ali had his own style. He was great with it.
Yeah.
Sonny Liston, you big ugly bear. I'm gonna, all that shit. Like you have
Yeah.
to me, that's the style I want to like as the fight right now. Honestly, dude, I don't. If I would to talk shit to Matt and all that, there's no point. Like we're at a level right now where it's why I just don't see. He's not a type of guy that would have been influenced by that in any way, and in the same breath it wouldn't have done a whole bunch to like sell tickets or like pump up the views or something on a fight by fight basis, right? Maybe you dial that up a little bit more or whatever, but
Yeah.
you gotta, I don't know, you gotta do it in good jest. You gotta do it from the right place, I guess, at the right time.
Yeah, and I also feel like at that level where you're not top dog and you're just in there, I feel like the best thing is cutting promos. Like after a fight, like Dana 60 G's, baby.
Right?
You
Yeah.
know,
Little
that
sound
kind of
bites.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff where that, that's where you get to the press conference, and then that's where you can, you can start poking fun at people.
Yeah.
But
Good insight, dude. Okay.
I feel like, like you said, it's like you talk shit to just a random person, it's not like it's just not going to catch any traction. I mean, it might get some traction there, but as for you're not going to get like blow up overnight for talking shit to, a very someone similar. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And in the same breath too, it's also that whole quote of like you get out or you get back what you put out.
Yeah.
I've noticed that the fan bases that those kind of people typically get are they're more fickle. They're not in it for the long haul. They don't because they don't see the real you. They see only the little sound bites that you keep stacking up or only the little
Yeah.
videos, and they don't really feel anything when you fight. They're there to watch you win, watch you lose. They're more so there to watch for the sound bites. They're not there to watch you, I guess, if that
Right.
makes any
Yes,
sense.
that's so true. And also those kind of fans, aside from Connor, because it's just super unique. Like getting a whole country to rally around you, like selling out arenas, American arenas from Ireland, like that's so different. But when you look at if you lose, like for instance, I love Colby Covington, but if he was to get knocked out tomorrow, his fan base would have dropped. If Masvidal would have knocked him out, he would have went from hero to zero real quick, right? And the Kamaru Usman fights aren't necessarily good because they're still questionable. You can make an argument for him winning those fights. If Colby Covington won those fights, it'd be like, okay, I can see that. Kind of the same way Kamaru is, right? Like those were like millimeter type fights. But if he was to get knocked out like Connor did, then you'll see that fan base slowly trickle away, and
Yeah.
it's very fair weather when you start tampering with that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It comes off in a different when you start losing, all that shit you say, it like starts coming off in a different way.
Yep.
It starts coming, you're like, wait, he's saying he's the best, he's saying he's what? And
Yeah.
he's you did that, bruh? You sure? Like you start seeing through the bullshit a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at. I mean, even Connor's kind of starting to get to that point where, like, we all know Connor is an amazing boxer. He's an amazing striker with questionable grappling. He can get it done, but that's not a strong suit, right? We all know this. Connor's elite, right? If he was to go fight, some dude ranked 15 to 10, he would probably, mess him up. But when you start fighting, the Dustin Poiriers, that's really all he's fought in. So I mean, and
A
Khabib,
little bit.
yeah. So when you fight those guys, there's where they're Dustin has one of the most well-rounded games ever, and so you start losing yourself, and like the last press conference July 4th, I love Connor. I have his whiskey. I have posters of him. I love him. But some of those, like the Jolie's wife, that would you're just like
It's a reach, buddy. It's a reach.
it's a reach. Like that's not like I get it. Like and then the arena starts chanting Jolie's wife because that's just Connor. But like when you look at it, it's like really like this is what I tuned in for. Like you said, I'm here for, especially for the press conference. I'm here, who the fuck is that guy?
Right?
Taking the belt, sorry I'm late, I just don't give a fuck, right? Like that's what I'm here
Classic.
for. I'm not here for Jolie's wife and in the same sense, Dustin did have a good punchline in there. The McGregor asleep, or McGregor fast asleep. That was a good punchline. I'm surprised it didn't get utilized earlier because that's such a great punchline. But
gotta save that ammo, bro.
yeah, well, I mean, by someone else. Again, he hasn't really fought anyone, and the first time, they were friends. But I'm sure, and Khabib's not really like that kind of a heel. He doesn't really talk. He's like, I'm gonna smash you. Which
That always
is,
tends to sell for the Russians too.
yeah, literally. I think it's the accent though.
Fair
Like,
enough.
I think if an American guy, I'll just use Dustin because we use him a lot. If Dustin was like, "I'm gonna smash you, bro," like it's just not there. But if you're like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna smash you, bro," it's like that accent is just like drives it home, you know.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then their
100%.
persona, their beard, and then you start thinking like, at least personally, I start thinking about Rocky Four when it's just
Yeah.
like the Russian, the unstoppable Russian. I mean,
Yeah.
you just start thinking about how Russians are portrayed. Yeah, I think there's so much in there and shit. It just works for them.
Yeah. It's I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. So kind of transitioning, let's talk about your fight career. So major UFC debut. Thiago Santos, I think he fought someone, I forget who. But
Ankalaev, I believe.
yep, Magomed Ankalaev. And I watched the fight. I was actually, that's how I wanted to reach out to you, because I knew of you, because I watch, Fury and all that kind of stuff. I love mixed martial arts. And so like I knew of you, and I watched you on the Contender series, which I want to talk about as well. And that knee was insane.
Thank you.
But I think it kind of went down to one of those things where I thought you won the fight. But what were your takeaways from that fight?
Yeah, it was kind of like we were saying earlier, like any decision can be a fight changing or a fight, fight ending in some cases decision. And there was just certain like first round went great. I wanted to go out and I wanted to take Matt down. I wanted to wear on him a little bit. I knew on the feet I'd be fine. I wasn't worried about being on the feet with him, but in the same breath, I thought I would have a higher advantage on the ground than him. And I
Mhm.
wanted the first round to kind of wear on him a little bit. There was a certain adjustments and certain mid-fight things that I needed to change that I just didn't recognize in time. For example, the first round I was on top. I got to mount. I didn't really land that much damage though. And that was mostly because I wanted to wear on the gas tank, right? I wanted him to try to explode, use his energy to get back up. And if he got back up, great. But I wanted that gas tank to be, to be worn on. He was a lot better at positionally and just in his mind. And that's just from him, having 4 fights in the UFC already. He was a lot better at knowing how to conserve that energy and knowing how to keep himself safe in those spots and not panicking to get up, not blowing his gas tank or whatever. So first round ends, probably should have thrown some more damage, should have opened up more and not thought that I could get back to those good positions later in the fight if I just wanted to. Right. Second round, I think I win the first two, basically right down to the second 2.5 minutes of the fight. I take him down. I'm on the feet. I'm looking good. Timing's looking sharp. I take him down, and somehow he did something really smart where he was willing to give up his back to me instead of working up from guard like he and I both, or I tried most of the fight. He tried in the first round working up from guard. He was willing to give up his back as long as he had control of my wrist. And that's a risk, right? You get your back taken, guys get hooks in, they sink in rear naked chokes. Not a good spot. But he did it a smart way. He had my wrist, and I had one hook in, maybe two, and he unhooked my hooks without his hands. He just did a little leg swim, and I started falling off the side and went for an arm bar. And we're so slippery, bro. I just plopped down right in front of him. He got on top. And another error was I thought there was maybe a minute to a minute and a half left, not 2 minutes to 2.5. So there was a bit of a time thing in my head, and maybe I probably could have heard that from my corner now that I think about it. But who knows? That was another decision that, hey, bro, don't go for the armbar when you're slippery as shit. Just get up, stand on your feet, and go for it. Third round, he damn near dumped me on my head. I still have little elbow shit from it, but no, dude. All in all, it was a good fight. It was just that was like I learned way more about myself and my style and what I need to come back to the gym to work on in that fight, that 15-minute war, than the 2-minute knockout with Leonardo. Like I
Yeah.
didn't learn shit from Leonardo. I analyzed it so much, and there was like maybe one or two things I could come back. When I got back to the gym after that fight, dude, I was so excited and still am because there were so many little pieces that I could go back, and it was nothing like, oh, bro, you got dominated. Oh, bro, like
Yeah.
you don't belong here. It was just like, hey, change these decisions, change when you do certain things, and change just little things in your head, and you'll be right along. So I don't know. It was a good overall experience. Obviously, I wanted that picture perfect debut and all, but I can't be upset with how it went, and I'm already kind of. I'd like to think I've already kind of pieced together those pieces that needed to be tightened up. So
So what's next for you? Do you have a fight lined up? Do you have a
we
date?
may we may or may not have just gotten in, actually, like probably 10 minutes before I got you a fight contract, but I don't think I can say when just yet. It will be at some point in the summer.
Oh, okay. And so, kind of reverting back to the contender series, what was that experience like? Because everyone has a different experience, and it's one of the newer ways where you can kind of solidify yourself to get into the UFC.
Yeah, it was like a Diet Coke. I got to see everything. I got to see all the
Yeah.
flavors, all the pre-fight stuff that was involved. I got to make the walk. I didn't have any walkout music, so that was really fucking awkward. But they walk us out, you open the doors, and it's just boom, quiet. And being the first fight of the whole thing, you don't know what to expect, so you just, all right, here we go. Let's go for it. But dude, it was great. Like you can't in every situation in my head of how I drew it up, like going into that fight, everything played out perfect. I knew Leonardo was a big puncher, so I had been working the whole camp on cover, uppercut, cover two, cover, whatever, like anticipating he'd throw big winging shots and leave himself open. The night before the fight, I went back and I watched one of his older fights, and somebody actually countered with the cover uppercut like I was planning to do, and he fucking clocked him with a hook on that same side. So it's like, oh damn, okay, I could still use that, but it's a little dangerous. What if I just cover and throw the knee? So then the knee got in my head, and I had him against the cage then, and I was like, okay, I feel like he's about to wing a shot. Like he knows I might shoot. So I'm going to fake a takedown, see if I can at least draw like a low hand reaction or a big punch, and then come up with the knee. And it happened. And it was, I'm, yeah, I was speechless for probably 2 months after that. And it was a dream come true, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny you say you've related to a Diet Coke because a lot of people, you're there, right? You're in the apex, you're doing the do, right? But
Right.
if it doesn't go your way, you just kind of you just you're there, you saw everything, but you're obviously not where you set out to be.
Right.
Which most times, you'll get another opportunity, some way, somehow. But obviously, you want to get it done the first try. And so I think it's kind of funny you relate it to a Diet Coke because that and the Ultimate Fighter, I feel like, is both. If you could go back though, would you rather be on the Ultimate Fighter or the Contender?
Damn, that's I feel like the exposure would have been better on the Ultimate Fighter. Um, well, I don't know. I'm not sure, dude. I'm really not. Probably the Contender though, just for not having to be locked in a room with your
Six
opponent for
weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool and all, but I'm all right. I like my house here.
Yeah. And another question that I always ask, I have my personal beliefs, obviously, but would you rather knock somebody out clean, like where they face plant, or would you rather like make someone tap or choke them unconscious or break a limb?
I would say neither. I want the knockout, and that's what I'm looking to do this next one. I want to start somebody, but the ones I like, I fucking love the most, and maybe this is that dark side we were talking about earlier. I like when you're in there, you can feel like what somebody's thinking in some way. You can feel like
Yeah,
certain, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And whenever you feel the fight just go out of somebody, like they
yes,
relent to being the submissive side, that's the fucking feeling I'm after. That just like
yes,
that's dominating. Anybody can get starched in like 30 seconds. Anybody can get caught. But whenever you take somebody's will and you know that they were ready to quit and they were looking for an out, so they gave you a submission, or they covered up so the ref could stop it. When you feel that and you feel the will that to fight just absolutely leave their body, you know that if you ever have to step in a ring with them again, you've got their will in your fucking back pocket, and they got to come try to snatch it back, and that's a tough fucking job. You start somebody, or you submit them, maybe they still wanted to fight, maybe they didn't. You fucking take their will, that's a whole different conversation. So that's the one I'm after, you know?
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you because, you know, like if you look at it, Tony Ferguson was not losing that fight. He just got punt kicked to the face, right? Now, although there's something to be said about it, a blockbuster knockout and the adrenaline you get after it, it's amazing. But, or, you know, like Dustin, he got, you know, caught in a position, got choked out. You know, he wasn't losing the fight though. He was winning every minute until then, right? And so you kind of look at that and you're like, you know, there's room for debate, but I'm after what Colby Covington did to Masvidal. 5 rounds, 50-44. I'm here in your face for 25 minutes, and you know, I'm gonna make you pay, and I'm gonna torture you for 25 minutes, and I'll even mix up a 10-8 just to make it look good, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Those are the ones that last, and those are the ones that fans may not like them the most and all that if they're not, like exciting finish or whatever. But those are the ones where you and I both know. And when I see you in a hallway, we know what's up, homie.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your take on the sucker punch that took place after it?
Bro, if it happens before the fight, or if the fight never materialized, like if you never had the opportunity to go across the cage from him and punch him in the face, then I'm all for it, bro. You say shit about some of these kids, whatever, you deserve it. But because you had that opportunity to do shit in a cage where it's okay there, you had 25 minutes and you couldn't do it, to sneak somebody, nah, I'm not with that, dude.
Yeah, so. I agree. I'm just gonna. So anyway, yeah, I feel like once you have 25 minutes to settle it with somebody, I don't think, and it's also one thing too to sucker punch, but if we see each other in the street and I know you're coming and you know I'm coming, that situation's completely different.
No, 100%. This whole sucker punch that, look, I worked in a bar freshman year, and I've seen some shit, sucker punching on concrete and all that, dude. There's just way too much bad shit that can happen. Like I don't fuck with all that, not at all. And it's a bitch move, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and well, fighting on concrete is by far the worst thing. Like if I'm out and about and somebody wants to like fight me or get after it, obviously first thing I'm gonna do is try to avoid it. But if it's to the point where there's no avoiding it, you're just gonna have to starch this guy. I'm like, come on, let's step onto the grass. So at least when I dump you on your head, you're not getting dumped onto concrete, right?
Like, it's a soft pillow for you, buddy. Just sleep on it. Real nice.
Yeah, and I think as MMA, as mixed martial artists, I don't think street fighting civilians is you should avoid it at all costs. But there's also circumstances where you just need to whoop this dude's ass, and especially when you're not like I am. I'm not in the UFC, so I'm not elite at all, and so it's kind of different. But like, whereas if Dustin did that, then there'd be hell to pay, legally. There's just so much shit that you'd have to go through. It's just way worse, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't think street fighting on concrete is the worst thing you could possibly do, just because you get clocked and then you face plant and now you have brain damage.
Yeah, man, there's just too much shit that can happen. On best case scenario is I'd like to think my defense is good enough to be able to block, a Mardi Gras punch from T-Bob down at the bar or something. But I'd like to block it and get in, and maybe we can start grappling from there, and then I could just snuggle him, wake him up and say, hey, buddy, we done a little bit? No, okay, let's go back. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best case scenario. I tell my kids all the time whenever I'm teaching and stuff, like, look, punch if you fucking have to. Punch if you really have to.
Exactly.
But on your hands, if you punch your forehead, homie, it's not worth it. Your hand's broken. 2, like we were just saying, if you're on concrete or something, so much bad shit can happen. And then 3, there's nothing like tying a grown man up in a little pretzel where he can't move and you're on his back and he's just like, all right. And then because he's got to think with it too. He can't just wake up and be like, damn, he whooped my ass, whatever. He's got to sit there while you have him checkmated and reevaluate his whole life decision. And that's
Yeah.
the top of the top right there.
Yes, for sure. I mean, yeah, I'm for sure. I mean, I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna take your back. I'm gonna put you in a body triangle, and if and I'll just hold you there until you feel like you're done. And if it starts to be on a time constraint, I'll just choke you unconscious. You'll wake up a few minutes, and I'll be gone.
It'd be great. Nothing.
Yeah,
So what
and then
is
there's
your? Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and then there's no nothing. There's just you
Yeah.
wake up, no permanent damage. You just got choked unconscious, and that's
Just
that.
a little ego. Just a little ego hurting a little bit.
Yeah.
That's it. So, dude, what is your goal with all this? I see you got some interviews and stuff up with people you're training. Do you wanna get to the
Yeah.
UFC or you wanna fight or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, that's it. That's ultimately the goal. Like I said, I'm gonna go play college football first just to get free education.
Hell yeah.
And I'm gonna be in Wisconsin. So I'm probably gonna train at Roof Sport.
Nice, dude.
But ultimately, I love the fight game, and I feel like I've talked to like big names in football. Like I've talked to Tate Martell, Dorian Thompson Robinson, big names because I grew up in Vegas, and so
Okay.
and I have affiliations with Bishop Gorman, and I mean everything there. So I've done the do, and I just don't feel connected to them like as I do like talking to a fighter. When you're talking to somebody, you're like, all right, this is my kind of guy, and this isn't. I just feel like I have like just a different part of me where it's like, I can relate to a fighter a lot more, and I love it. Through quarantine, I actually the first thing I ever watched. I honestly, when I was super young, and I was like, this is dumb. I was like, I couldn't see myself getting in a cage to try to fight somebody. It just didn't resonate with me. As a 12-year-old, I was into the WWE stuff. And that quickly faded away once I realized it was fake. Like it's all cool. Like, oh, this guy's gonna beat his ass with a chair. Like that's cool. And then like
Right.
13, you kind of just wake up and you realize this is dumb. This isn't real. And so I went from that, and then I was like, all right, maybe fighting. And then the first thing I ever watched was the notorious Conor McGregor's documentary, which is very well produced. And so I growing up in Vegas, my friends were great, like huge UFC fans. So I went to the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz press conference one of those years in the weigh-ins or something like that. It was
You didn't
electric.
get a monster bottle thrown at you, huh?
No. Although that would have been awesome, right? But so I did some stuff like that, and then through quarantine, I was like, this is I relate to fighters more than I do anyone else, because that's ultimately what I want to do. And I'm decent at it. I mean, obviously I get my ass kicked with killers.
So do
but
I, bro.
but I think, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good off my back. That's where I do the most work, is off my back. Anywhere else I don't really feel anything. And then my hands, being a quarterback, I feel like I have more explosion in my right hand, just because I've worked 18 years of my life of just getting torque and throwing shit as hard as I can. And so I kind of relate it to that. And so other than that, I mean, I'm pretty average.
No, dude, we all start out like that. Trust me, bro. And if you're not taking ass whoopings, then you're probably in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And dude, you're gonna have like somebody like you. Like everybody's fighting's cool in that there's no like, you can say there's a prototype, there's like a meta, there's a body style, there's a certain background that you want to have. But dude, there's a home for every single
Everyone, yeah.
background, every like all the things that I had in football, they like ultimately they weren't fit for football for me. Like being short as a linebacker, I was strong and all that, but they didn't fit in football, if that makes sense. But when I came to fighting, all those things that didn't fit became like my biggest strengths, my overall strength or whatever, my knowing how to look at film and break it down and see tendencies, knowing how to recognize and set patterns and then break them. Tackling people. The range in MMA is not a wrestling range. Wrestling helps, but knowing how to close that distance, like you're tackling somebody or whatever, like whatever skills you picked up in your athletic development or whatever before, they're going to serve you very well as soon as you transfer over. And just keep exploring that, dude. Everybody's got a different journey and just own it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty explosive, and I'm kind of like you. As a quarterback being 5'9", if you're not running a 4.40, then there's really not a home for you. I mean, I know for sure I could go play, like in the FCFL or something like that. But I honestly think that's just a waste of my time. I'm not getting paid good money. I'd rather, because if none of this works out and I don't get to be a professional athlete like I thought I was going to be, then ultimately I'm going to be a doctor. So, either way, I think I'd be happy, but my football is running out, and I just feel like I would do a disservice for myself, A, to get free college education, right? But B, because growing up, I've always wanted to chase that dream, and so I want to chase it, knowing that I'm not going to go to the NFL, obviously, unless I grow miraculously like 6'2", 6 foot, and then maybe, but until then, probably not. But fighting, you can be there's weight classes, there's a home for everybody, and my build 5'8", huge legs, and pretty explosive. Kind of like, if I was to relate myself to somebody, I'm like Mike Chandler. Like, I'm just a fucking freak, workout and just stacked legs, but yeah, that's who I'd relate to, and just super explosive. But yeah, obviously, hopefully I make it to the big leagues, because that's what, like, I just love it. I just love fighting. There's something to be said about just getting in a fucking fist fight with somebody. It's just something that it's just, I just love it.
I feel you. How did you get into doing the interviews, and like, what's the thought behind that?
So I love Joe Rogan. And so when I was through quarantine, the first part of it, it was new, and I was just like, it didn't feel like myself. And my mom loves Joe Rogan. And so I started listening to Joe Rogan, and then I was like, that's what I want to do. That seems fun. And then I moved to Kansas City from Vegas, not knowing anybody, with a semester to go as a senior, because I graduated early. I didn't know anyone, and it was like, do I want to go to school and meet people? Probably not, because I don't relate to anybody my age. I just feel like I'm so ahead. Like I just do different shit that an 18-year-old
wouldn't have pegged you as being in high school or about to graduate high school. Yeah.
What?
No, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't have pegged you as about to graduate.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I have my business.
Much older.
Yeah, and I have my business, Beefs and Billions. I have my NFT coming out, and so I'm just doing so much shit. And so
there we go.
I have my NFT coming out. I have my business, Beefs and Billions, and so I'm just doing shit that an 18-year-old would not give a fuck about, right? I don't care. I'm not. I was never interested in like prom or anything. I was just like, catch me at the gym. I've always been like that kind of guy, where it's like, I have a goal to chase and I'm going to go get it. I don't, because they're going to deteriorate me games. And so that's kind of like my mindset. And so once I realized, I moved here, and I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to chase being a fighter. And also, in case that doesn't work out, I want to be a doctor, right? And so I was like, well, how can I kind of get my hooks into the fight game? And so I was like, okay, talking to them, right? you're not going to gain insight because you can watch a press conference, you can do whatever, but I'm never like I'm going to get a more info from this kind of conversation than I am from listening to you talk at a press conference. And what better to do and learn from than people who have done it and talking to them on an intimate level. So then I was like, well, that's what I want to do it. So now how do I do that? So I got a platform, and now I can reach out to people, and they want to talk. And also it's just like I'm gonna make money for doing it too. I don't like why talk to somebody, which I'm making. If you think about it, I'm making two incomes, right? I'm getting paid from YouTube, and then I'm getting paid in knowledge and wisdom, which obviously one's higher than the other. I'd rather all the knowledge and wisdom over and having a minimal amount of money. And so like that's just kind of the thought process that I had going into it. And obviously I still have big things to do, big long way to go. I mean, eventually, like I want to have big names on and talk to big names, like Joe Rogan. But you got to start somewhere. And 6 months, I think 6 or 8 months in, I feel like I'm doing decent for being 8 months in.
Hell yeah, man. You're on your way. All those things are things that took me much longer to learn than somebody sitting in your spot right now picking them up. So, bro, you are on the road. Just keep it up. And I'm glad that there's people younger than me that think the way you do. There's not a lot of them, but I'm glad that you're out there, bro. So just keep it up. And yeah, I'm impressed. That's awesome, dude.
So do you have any investments? Are you big into crypto, NFTs, the stock market? Are you big into any of that?
Dude, I'm not. So the whole, all right. I was, first of all, I never had any discretionary income up until, I mean, really until my debut. And it's not even that much to like kind of part with and put out there. I'm still just trying to survive, bro. Still trying to make it, but I have started dabbling a little bit. And the whole game, when the whole GameStop, you know what happened with the GameStop stock and all that, how
Yep.
selling shorts and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That whole thing, that was like when I was first, I guess that's about a year and a half ago now. That observing that and observing how controlling the attention and putting something out there on social media could affect a stock. Just the idea that controlling what's the information somebody got about a certain investment could either pump or dump the stock. That kind of like opened me up to like looking at stocks like that in general and kind of realizing like, oh, for the last 10 or 15 years, most of all the information we've gotten about stocks and stuff, other than the accredited investors and people who handle your money and all that, has come from mainstream media that we obviously can't exactly trust anymore too much.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then you start learning about how certain politicians have their insider trading ties, and then when they're confronted about them, they just say, "Oh, next question." You start seeing some of that, and I'll say this: I'm not the biggest into the stock market. What I do dabble in is like I like raw materials. I think like if you see like the whole movement about like solar and wind, all that shit has to go somewhere. That has to go into
Mm-hmm.
batteries, right? Batteries are made out of lithium, so I'm trying to like learn more about lithium and just put some skin in the game, so I have incentive to do it and all that. That's really that's kind of where I'm at with the whole stocks and stuff. Crypto, I'm much higher on, but I will say, especially after these last few weeks and last year in general, I think there's a lot of pump and dumps. There's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of people looking to get your money. But I think the technology of NFTs, the technology of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that, as those layers get built out, and as the infrastructure gets built out around it, I feel much more comfortable in something that's decentralized like that. And I know there's some cryptos that are more centralized than others or whatever, but I feel more comfortable in that technology, that emerging technology, than this one that I feel has been manipulated, especially because it's connected to our cash reserves or our monetary system that doesn't exactly seem to be doing too well either. It lends itself to bubble cycles because you input all this money into the economy, it goes to the people at the top, they buy the assets up, assets go up. When they have to sell them, they sell them. And I'm more into crypto than I am the stocks, I'll say. And I'm more into the blue chip cryptos, the Bitcoin, the Ethereum. And I'm dabbling into trying to throw some darts at what that layer 2 underneath Ethereum is going to be. But Bitcoin, Ethereum, a bit of raw materials if I can find it on, Robinhood or whatever. And that's kind of where I'm at. All the other investment shit, dude, is like I'm trying to get my own little like podcast deal going. I got a little camera. I'm trying to invest like in myself more than anything, in books and just shit like that, time, experience, going places.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that completely. I spend all my money on books, and I'm trying to gain as much knowledge. And the stock market's crazy. I'm big into Tesla, especially now because we're in a recession. So, and it's gonna go even deeper. So really, the best thing you can do is kind of just buy as much shit as you can, knowing that it's gonna go up eventually, right? So right now I have like 2 shares of Tesla, 2 full shares, and so it's gone down. It's like at 870 or something like that and it was like 1200, and so, and especially with Elon buying Twitter, just all the stuff he's doing, Tesla, it's going to go back up. I know it, and so I'm just kind of here for the long haul. And then also like the S&P 500, the trust funds. That's also what I'm into because that's also down. So, and it's not like it's just a trust fund. So, I'm just dumping money into that and hoping when I'm 50, I'll have, a pile of money to pull out. And then the Roth IRA as well, because I just turned 18, literally May 5th. So I have a lot of,
congrats, dude.
Yeah. So I literally just getting skin in the game through myself. I've been investing a long time through my mom. But like actually having my own account and stuff, putting money into it, it's been different. And then I'm big into NFTs. I have so many NFTs. And being into the NFTs, I get sent shit, and so it's not like I don't have too much money into NFTs, but I know they're going to be something. But they're so tricky because 98% of them will go to zero, and that's what I'm doing with mine. I'm looking at all these NFTs and I'm building a roadmap, and and I'm just doing it, trying to see where everyone else fails, so I can do it right, and then I'll hopefully be at the top.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's something like, even if you do think that NFTs and most of them are going to go to zero, there's some value in putting some skin in the game where you want to go and learn about it, because the technology behind the NFTs, the fact that you can have a one of one, that can be applied to so many different things, and we don't have the infrastructure yet to build it out. But being one of the first ones to dabble in it and understand the language of crypto and the language of NFTs, and being able to speak that, so that whenever real opportunities and things that start gaining some traction do come around and do cross your eyes, you know what you're looking at, right? There's
Right.
there's opportunity cost, right? You gotta
Mm-hmm.
be willing to part with some stuff to be able to get the opportunities when they come up. I'll
Yeah.
throw this out there. Alternative investment.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the influence that Dustin's had on you through your fight career, because he's obviously in your corner last fight, and I don't remember if he wasn't in the Contender Series or not, but and you obviously train with him at the Diamond Center. So what's the influence with Dustin, and what's kind of the relationship you have with him?
I'll say the first bit just makes it real, makes everything real. Like the first time I trained with him, we were just like drilling or something, and then we were kind of doing like some fun rounds back and forth or something like that. And I think I got like an outside trip or something. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he beats the brakes off me, runs circles around me, whatever. But we were like drilling, and I did like an outside trip or something. And he asked me a question. He was like, "Damn, bro, what'd you hit right there?" That was the first like interaction I remember with him. And it just like, I was like, "Oh shit, dude, he's there." And he just asked me, like, he must be human. You know what I mean? Like, coming from football, like, I didn't have like I didn't know a lot of people at that next level from where I was. Like it was always kind of like looking from the outside in, looking at like the people on TV and just like, damn, they must be
Yeah.
like made of something different. They're like Titans, whatever. They're not from Earth. So seeing him, it was kind of like my first experience being in the room with somebody at the top level of whatever it is, and that was, that was pretty eye opening. And then just being around him, like seeing that he's a normal person, obviously picking up techniques from him, learning the game from him, all that. Those are all major things. The other one though is when he beat Max Holloway. I was there with my parents. We were watching the fight, and just watching him, like, God, dude, when I think back on it, it almost seems like it's gonna seem maybe not like that much to whoever listens, whoever watches or whatever. But to me, it was almost like a fucking spiritual experience, like watching him win his title and shit. Like I was like, oh my God, dude, he is at the top. He is a human. I have been in the room. He punched me right here in my face. And he is like, he did that. I can do that. I can fucking do that. There's no reason why I can't do that. So it was like, I'll say this, it was a really cool moment. And then it was a really like, oh shit moment. It was really cool because all your doubts and all like your little sub reasons as to why you couldn't be successful or why like other people have gotten to this point and you haven't, they all get washed away. When you see somebody, like, success is a mirror. Whenever you see somebody doing something like at the top of their game, it just it fills you up with shit. You can either get jealous or it could absolutely just fill you up with that, oh yeah, I can do that shit too, let's go. And then in the same breath, I had this realization, I guess, reflecting on it on the way back. And let me, these aren't like split second moments. These are like thinking about the memory of that thing and like thinking about how I think about it, if that makes sense. And these are ideas that have formed over time since that day. But like in that moment, I knew, I was like, damn, something just happened in myself rewatching this. But the other thing I learned through that was like, damn, so if I could do it, that means anybody else in the world probably could do the same shit. In something like MMA, where no body type dictates, where the gatekeepers, there's gatekeepers, but as long as you're knocking people out and finishing fights, you'll probably get to where you're looking to go, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there was also this realization, like, damn, everybody else in the world could do it. So what's separating me? Like how am I going to be different? How am I going to make sure I get here? How am, like, there's reasons that people don't get to that level that have even more skill than me. What are those reasons? And it led me on this search that I'm kind of still on, like buying books and shit like this. I didn't know the word for it at the time, and I probably didn't know it until a few months ago, but it led me on like this search for wisdom, I guess, because what I realized is that everybody can get to that point, but there's some reason that they don't. And most of the time, yeah, the world can dictate it and all, but most of the time, what it comes down to is like them. It's some personal struggle
Yeah.
they couldn't get over, some thing that they couldn't learn, something internal that they couldn't figure out how to get past, and that's why they're not there, or something like that. And it was like it was a really cool moment because it filled me up with everything and made me think all my dreams were possible. And then it was sobering in that, yeah, bro, but if you're fucking yourself over, you're not going to get it. If you're not all in, you ain't going to get there. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are kind of like some of the coolest moments. And then since then we've become like more, more friends and everything. And I get to ask him about, like, there's levels of the game he's seen in terms of the business side, in terms of the fighting side, in terms of the mindset and everything that I just haven't asked. So having somebody that's walked that path before you, like kind of like what you're trying to do with this podcast, talking to people who have walked that path before you, it's like, oh, great, I don't have to trip in that pothole that he did because he's going to tell me about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Right. Yeah,
invaluable.
for sure. For
Absolutely
sure.
invaluable.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about that. And it's like learning from people. Like there's a saying, and I always fuck it up, but it's like a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. Something along those lines. And so like talking to somebody, or just like people that I talk to in general, you can always learn something from somebody. And it's just in life. Like if you go talk to a crackhead on the street, it's going to be 99% bullshit, but there's going to be 1%, one thing you can learn from him, where he's like this life experience that he's went through and is like, don't do this, right? Or, he may not even be as direct as that, but he's going to tell you about a life experience he's had, and you're going to be like, all right, so if I ever get in that situation, I know to not do that, right? Or I'm going to end up like him. So it's from everyone. It's from that all the way to the top. And so I think that that's very important to being like from somebody, because you can always learn from someone.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And this is what I'm kind of realizing as I like keep kind of like climbing this whatever little ladder, whatever mountain I'm trying to climb or whatever, is the higher you get up, the less people there are at that elevation. Meaning the harder it is to find people at that level to give you relevant advice. Like I could ask my mom years ago, I could ask my mom certain questions about like, hey mom, like should I do this, this, and this? Now, like the way my life is, I can still ask mom, dad tons of questions. Don't get me wrong. But about fighting, about this area, this specific mountain, that list is getting real, real small. And some of the problems or some of the situations I'm starting to encounter today or have been over the past like year, most of even 99% of the fighters I've been around, they just haven't experienced that. So they can't give me their knowledge on that. So being around people and being around guys that are willing to give you the real knowledge, they don't look back and try to say that they did it all perfect or whatever. Being around guys that are honest about their experience on the way up, dude, you can't find it. It's invaluable, dude. Really.
Yeah, it's and finding the value in it is the most important thing.
Absolutely, bro.
Well, that's all I have for you. I appreciate it. It's like 2 hours, 3 hours long podcast, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. So I can't thank you enough for sitting down, because I've kind of looked at you and I was like, that's really cool. Kind of the path you've walked. So, and then watching your fight, I'm a big fan. And so can't wait to see what's next for you and where you go, and let's stay in touch. And yeah, man.
Absolutely, man. Best of luck on everything you're going for, bro. Keep it up.
Thank you. And for everyone watching, thank you guys for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.